Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nits and coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today. I wanted to talk about the SSL channel and why the pros are addicted to it. The main idea of my video here today is I just wanted to talk to you guys about how you have to pick a couple of plugins, right, that give you the sound that you hear in your head, right? And those plugins are kind of like special to you. So, many people made their name off of like SSL channels because it kind of gave them the sound that they heard in their head, right? So it gave them their signature sound, right? And it enabled them to be not only artistic, but to be creative and be efficient with their time. So I believe as an engineer, it's very important to have a select few plugins that you know very well, but are very versatile enough to give you any sound that you hear in your head. And that's why a lot of these pros, they love the SSL, not only just the console, but the plugin as well, because of the workflow and what it does for them. So that's the main idea, what I'm trying to get you guys at here today. And I'm going to show you a couple of different alternative ways to use the SSL. So the reason why the pros are addicted to this EQ and consistently keep reaching for it is because consistency. It gives them consistency across the same tracks. They don't have to worry about pulling up this plugin, or option paralysis is a very big thing. Us as human beings, we work better with less options just due to the overall fact that we were never optimized to have abundance. This is the first time in human history where we've had so many options. You could pick what you want to wear, this and that, but most of our time, as people, we were in the jungle. If we saw a piece of chicken, we had to go grab it. So that's the thing about the SSL. Is using that part of your brain, that instinctual part of your brain, where you only have a few options and you got to make the most out of it, right? So that's why I love the signal flow of the SSL, and the waves also model the circuitry very well. So what I have right here is I want to talk about the input trim. So with the input trim, that's kind of like the line amp is how I see it. How hard you want to hit the plugin, right? So usually what I'll do when I start a whole mix is I'll pull up the whole SSL, I'll put an SSL on every single channel, and I'll start playing with the input trim until I get my gain staging how I like it. Usually I like to have it somewhere in this little green zone. And if I do ever have to, want to push it into the plugin to get a certain sound, I like to drive it in with this input trim, and I pull the output out so I can get some of the sound of the circuitry. So that's one different way that I use the SSL channel, and that's as a saturator to give me some color. Now, the next thing that we have right here that I want to talk about is the filters. So with the filters, the signal flow of the SSL is unique in its way. With the filters, you can have it come before or after the dynamics. So when split is in, it comes before the dynamics, like kind of how it would normally be, right? The high pass filter is an 18 dB octave, and the low pass filter is a 12 dB octave. So it's very moderate. It's not too aggressive in the shape of the filters. So after that, we have our EQs right here. We have the shelf, the low filter. There's also a brown. The SSL, they used to have a replaceable brown filter. So that's the good thing about the EV2. It models that. But you have the low filter, the low shelf, which can also turn into a bell if you click this. You have the cues right here, which lets you get surgical. Then you have the frequency selector and this right here, all of that good stuff. We already know about all of that. But then we have the ratio here as well. So the good thing about the SSL for the waves, the little cheat code is that you can turn this knob, this threshold knob, all the way, and it will give you some saturation, right? And then the next thing that we usually do when I have vocals, right, is I turn the threshold the whole way up and I bring the ratio, and I do about 1 to 3 dB. And the good thing about the SSL is that it's a automatic makeup gain, so you won't really get ever fooled by the level match. But it makes it a lot easier for you. And I always keep the release on fast, right? Whenever I'm using the SSL on vocals, I like to use the G as well sometimes. But whenever I use the E, I always just use it to hit the the peaks of the vocal, so the release is always the fastest release. So the good thing as well about the SSL is that it's very versatile. Another thing I like to use the SSL for is as a limiter on my parallel compression bus. So that's another idea that you guys can do. You have an 1176 or whatever parallel compressor that you're using, and sometimes it can get really aggressive. Its parallel compression is moving quickly. So I like to use the SSL as a stopgap limiter which is another creative way that you can use it as well, right? And then if you do want to make some EQ moves on your parallel compression, make sure you watch out for phase. You can do that as well. And that's what makes the SSL so good. It's all about efficiency, about time, quickness. Everything is already there for me, so I don't have to waste any time, right? And the last thing that I like to use the SSL for is I like to use the SSL as a distortion plugin. So with the EV2, they actually modeled the miking, the mic preamp. So what I like to do right here, it's kind of like a technique. Turn up this mic right here and they start distorting the mic amp and they kind of blend it in. So let me show you an example of that right here in this song.
Then if they don't have no back end, once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours, ain't no way that I'm asking. Words mean nothing if they don't have no back end. Once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours, ain't no way that I'm asking. Prepare for the worst, but I'm ready for what's next. If you don't gotta check, I don't see you as a threat. Shawty want a real nigga, I can see it in her eyes. But that Patek on my wrist, I don't put in overtime. Put my fam before myself, that's how I prioritize. I can't even lie, they got some baddies down in Sunrise. Addicted to them yerkies, now I'm craving for a 30. Did my dirt all on my own, nigga, I don't need a Cody. Hey, you gon' be scratching out shit like you Mr. Mosley. Why you tryna judge me when you don't even know me? Tryna put me down when you couldn't even hold me. Told her that I'm real, she said go ahead and show me. Words mean nothing if they don't have no back end. Once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours, ain't no way that I'm asking. Words mean nothing if they don't have no back end. Once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours.
So you could also use it like that way as a distorter. And let me do that one more time.
Words mean nothing if they don't have no back end. Once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours, ain't no way that I'm asking. Words mean nothing if they don't have no back end. Once you say things, you can't bring them back in. I look ahead, I ain't worried about the past tense. Take what's yours, ain't no way that I'm asking. Prepare for the worst, but I'm ready for what's next. If you don't gotta check, I don't see you as a threat. Shawty want a real nigga, I can see it in her eyes. But that Patek on my wrist, I don't put in overtime. Put my fam before myself, that's how I prioritize. I can't even lie, they got some baddies down in Sunrise. Addicted to them yerkies now.
Yeah, so in a situation like that, if you're using the mic amp to distort, it's going to give you that fuzz, as you can hear. It's going to give you some edge, some grit. This mix is already like fully done, so it doesn't really need that. But that's a great thing about the EV2 as well. And yeah, I just showed you guys a couple of different alternative ways to use the SSL, you know. And the last way I wanted to tell you guys is that you can also use this right here. You can also use the dynamic section as a parallel compressor as well. That's something that I usually use on the Waves SSL-G just because I like how dark it is. But those are some alternative ways, you know, distorting the mic preamp, using the dynamic section as a parallel processor, kind of like this, how I showed you guys, but with the dynamic section. Then you can also use it as a limiter on your parallel compression, and you can use it as a saturator, like how I said, pushed in the input trim and back down this output fader. So those are some new ways, some new creative tricks that you can get out of this SSL. Maybe you have it and you haven't been using it, but this is the end of the video today. I didn't want to make it too long, just wanted to give some new tips. We all know about this plugin. That's something that I don't like to do. I don't like to talk about what everybody else has already been talking about. I like to just bring something new to the table, and that's what this channel is all about: new ideas, new creativity.